to talk to you guys about planning and some of the different aspects of planning and how planning can best serve you as a real estate investor. And I asked a couple of you guys, how many of you guys really got started with your year on January the 1st versus how many of you guys feel like you're getting started today? And I started the year a little bit on vacation and then also under the weather, so I felt a little bit behind. But I want to talk to you guys about the different ways that you can plan for an incredible 2023 and some of the different resources that I think you'll find that you may find inspirational as you are doing this. So I'm curious, has anyone in here read The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel? Anybody read The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel? So I first heard of Morgan Housel because he was interviewed by Tim Ferriss, and a friend of mine also had read the book, The Psychology of Money. And some of the things that he talks about include how success sometimes happens in what's called the long tail. So that means doing consistently the same thing over and over again. And one of the quotes that he talked about in this book was specifically Warren Buffett. So if Warren Buffett would have retired, for example, at age 65 instead of continuing to go until age 85 plus, then he would have been what many would call an also-ran. So most of his wealth, like 99% of his wealth, actually occurred for him after he turned 65, just doing the same thing over and over again. So it wasn't a overnight success story. It was a success story that took time and consistency. And he shared some of those thoughts in his book, The Psychology of Money, and some of the other great lines from that book in terms when it specifically comes to planning is that he said that things that have never happened before happen all the time. Can we give some good examples for that over the last 3 years? This would be the interactive part, really. Come on, guys. COVID. What else? Lockdown. What else? The what? Public market crash? Okay, yeah. What else? Musk and Twitter. What else? How about a snowstorm and ice storm in Houston, Texas? Right? How about, 3 100-year rain and hurricane events in Houston, Texas over just a few year period, right? How about a war, a very intense war in the Ukraine, right? How about interest rates more than doubling in about a 6-month period, right? So things that have never happened before happen all the time. So when you guys are planning your 2023, know that sometimes life will come and change your plans. And even though planning is important, but the most important part of every plan is to plan on the plan not going according to plan. And I will tell you that was part of my journey as a real estate investor as well. So do be aware that that's not uncommon for your plan to adjust and have the need to adjust. So when I first started investing, I started investing right after the dot-com bust. So I was starting investing in 2003, and there were a lot of things that were unusual about that market, including that most of the sales that we were doing were short sales or buying foreclosures because of the number of people who were losing their houses at that time. Follow that by the credit boom, follow that by the Great Recession, right? So I've invested through a Great Recession. Follow that by the biggest or the longest flat period in real estate here in Texas that lasted from about 2008 until about 2012. Follow that by the biggest jump in real estate prices from 2012 to 2022 in the middle of a pandemic and in the middle of supply chain shortage, et cetera. Follow that by 7 interest rate hikes of 0.75%. Just in a very short 6-month period. Follow that by prices going up, but sales dropping by 30% in most of the markets throughout Texas. So the plan doesn't always go according to plan. And Napoleon's definition of military genius was the man who can do the average thing when all those around them are going absolutely crazy. So for those of you guys who are just starting investing, I'm actually probably more excited for you than I am excited for someone who's been doing it for a little while, who's had this, especially for those of you guys who have just been investing for maybe the last 2 or 3 years, where it's been the best 2 or 3 years to be a real estate investor that's ever happened on this planet Earth in this great state of Texas. But those of you guys who are coming in greenfield with fresh eyes, fresh mind, Buddha mind, as I often call it, sometimes are actually able to do better than the people who have been doing it for just the last couple of years. And then probably one of my favorite quotes that I used every single day starting March 17th of 2020, which was, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? Brought to us by Mike Tyson. So that was one of his great quotes as well. And then Carl Richard, he said, risk is what's left after you've thought of everything else. Risk is what's left after you've thought of everything else. I've got a couple other great, if you're looking for great quotes on planning, you can look to Charlie Munger. Who's Charlie Munger? Warren Buffett's original and right-hand man for the last 40 some odd years. So he has a lot of great quotes on planning. And specifically, he's just saying, just try not to, your big plan may not come to fruition, but at the end of the day, just try not to make mistakes. Just try not to lose everything, because a lot of people do. In fact, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, there was actually a third that was part of their team that has not been mentioned for about the last, 15 or more years. You know who that third person is? He made a big mistake and then trailed completely off from Buffett and Munger. And what he did is he got over-leveraged in 2008 and he got completely wiped out. So leverage can both be your friend as well as leverage can be your enemy. So I will say be careful with that as well. And understand what those risks are that are out there so that you can make sure to manage those risks. So one of the things that one of my early business coaches taught me was when you're looking at a particular situation, you need to look at it 3 different ways. So he always said best case, worst case, most likely case. But what I find is most new investors are using which case scenario? Best case. In fact, they're using the best case on steroids, right? So they're using the highest ARV, the highest resale price that's ever existed. They're using the lowest repairs, so because no surprises are going to happen on my property, right? And my contractor is going to treat me absolutely perfect as we're going through this renovation process. So those are some of the things that I want you guys to be aware of, to do that best case, worst case, most likely case scenario. And when you're planning, so if you're listening to YouTube University will tell you, and I've said it myself many times over the last 20 years, when you're looking at comps, go back 6 months. And I see some of you guys writing that down, and I see even some of the realtors in the room saying, yes, that's accurate. The issue with looking at comps right now that are 6-month-old is what? You're looking in May and June of 2022, which was when the market was at its fever pitch. If you are using any comp where the agent says multiple offers received, best and final due by Friday, what do you know about that comp? It is no longer valid. Why is that? Ask the realtors in the room. Are we seeing situations with multiple offers above list price right now? No. So if you're using a comp, because your plan says use comps that are 6 months old, if you're using a comp that's 6 months old that has that referenced in it, what do you know that your ARV, your after repair value, what you will reasonably sell that property for after you fix it, what do you know that it will be less than? It may be 10%. It may, okay, that works. 10% less than what that sale price was. So if the sales price was $550, your sales price today would be closer to $500. So guys, please use that in your planning, because we're not seeing those wild prices that we saw in May and June of 2022, because that was the high part of the market. Now, year over year, in most of the markets, we're still seeing the prices up, but May to December, and historically May to December, we've seen those prices go down. But May to December now, we're seeing instead of like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% drop, we're seeing a 10 or more % drop. So make sure that your planning is well done, especially when it comes to the market that we're in right now. So I have several other tips and tricks that I share, and those you can all find on our YouTube channel. And I will tell you, they are all very focused on investing in this great state of Texas. So I will warn you guys, if you are listening to a YouTube channel where someone lives outside of Texas and is not investing in Texas, then if you plan on investing in the state that they are in, they're probably going to give you some fantastic advice. But if you are planning on investing in Texas, I highly recommend that you learn from people who live here, who work here, who invest here, because otherwise you might be learning something that won't apply in this market. We were talking about baking a souffle earlier. So do I have any cooks in the audience? Any cooks in the audience? Okay, a couple of you guys. So some of you guys may have seen recipes where it says something like, if you live in a high altitude or a low altitude, cook it at a different temperature, right? So the same thing applies when it comes to real estate investing. If you live in Texas, learn from people who are investing in that altitude to make sure that your souffle comes out right.